6 months ago, on March 27, 2025, Rebellion launched Atomfall across all major platforms and gave players a distinctly British take on post-apocalyptic survival. While its launch may not have broken the internet, there's been plenty happening behind the scenes, such as new updates, DLC, and more. So how is it looking today? And 6 months later, does Atomfall deserve more recognition? Before we dive into what Atomfall has been up to for the last 6 months, we should discuss what Atomfall is. Atomfall is a first-person action survival game that is set in an alternate 1960s Britain where the 1957 Windscale nuclear incident had far worse consequences. You play as a survivor who wakes up with no memory of themselves or what has happened, and are tasked with finding a mysterious place called the Interchange, while ultimately trying to escape the quarantined countryside. To do this, players will have to explore the quarantine zone, investigate conspiracies, and chat with a variety of other survivors who've been trapped in the quarantine zone. How the player chooses to interact with these characters, as well as which leads to follow, will influence the game's ending. Aesthetically, Atomfall feels like a mix of Fallout and British folklore. Instead of a large open world, Rebellion opted to break up Atomfall's map into various zones that players can navigate through. Atomfall also doesn't hold players' hands and allows them to explore and play however they want. This did lead to some early criticisms of the game, but is honestly something that I truly enjoyed. Speaking of early criticisms, Atomfall received pretty average scores across the board, which ultimately led it to receiving a strong rating on OpenCritic and an average top critic rating of 75. Many of the reviews praise the game's looks and atmosphere, and believe that it captured the British countryside extremely well. The uniqueness of folk horror and the mystery of the game were also praised quite a bit. However, some critics complained of early pacing issues with the game, as well as some technical rough edges at launch. Critics also noted the limited combat variety and lackluster stealth mechanics made it feel a bit clunky at times. Player ratings in the beginning also seemed to tell a similar story, with a player rating of around 70. It seems that the Game Pass launch helped bolster players' numbers, but the reception was more measured than critics. Players appreciated the atmosphere, but some found the survival mechanics overwhelming initially. Charles Hart at Game Informer seems to have captured the majority consensus pretty well, and said, "I don't regret my time with Atomfall. Like the world it depicts, something exciting and unique lies at Atomfall's core. I just wish it wasn't walled off by my laundry list of frustrations." While the game has received a number of post-launch updates, most were focused on minor bug fixes as well as some quality of life changes. However, June 3rd would see Atomfall's biggest addition to date with its first story expansion, The Wicked Isle. The premise was intriguing and added a mysterious fog-shrouded island called Midsummer Isle, which players could access by boat from Wyndham Village. It added new characters, new mysteries, and even new plot threads that expand on the game's story and provides more background on one of Atomfall's factions, the Druids. The Wicked Isle leaned into the more folk horror aspects of Atomfall, which allowed Rebellion to add new weapons and enemies into the fold and even new endings to the base game. On paper, it sounded exactly like what Atomfall needed, which was more content for players who had embraced the game's unique atmosphere. However, the reality proved a bit more complicated. Similar to the launch of Atomfall itself, critics were divided, with some praising it as a brilliant continuation and others dismissing it as nothing new for Atomfall. This seemingly makes sense, as it was something included as a part of the deluxe version of the game, and released relatively quickly after the base game's launch. It almost seems to act more as content that was held out of the base game so that it could be added as additional content specifically for the deluxe version. While this is all just speculation, the reason for this could be because the base game of Atomfall was released as a day one game on Xbox Game Pass. While Game Pass subscribers could still experience and beat Atomfall's base game, they wouldn't have access to Wicked Isle unless they were to buy the DLC or deluxe upgrade outright. On September 16th, Rebellion released their second story expansion, The Red Strain, and early signs suggest that they may have learned from the mixed reception of Wicked Isle. In The Red Strain, players once again venture into a new zone called Staffel Crag, where they uncover an experiment that has gone wrong, but its outbreak was contained in a place called Test Site Moriah. The DLC dives deeper into the blue growth seen throughout the base game, but the experiments performed on it seemingly made a much more violent version called the Red Strain, which causes anything it touches to experience unrelenting rage. Because of this, it introduces new enemy types and new variants of the enemies from the base game as well. Villagers who have been consumed by the red strain hunt in packs, as well as new variants of the ferals. In addition, the technology in this area brings in new variants of deadly robotic foes. The red strain also adds in a slew of new items to the game. One new skill allows you to salvage weapons from slain robots, which come with limited ammo but extremely high damage. It also expands on the base game by offering advanced technology, such as the Signal Redirector Mark II, and a number of silenced weapons as well, such as a silenced pistol and SMG. Similar to the Wicked Isle, uncovering the mysteries of the red strain can also lead players to new endings for the game and new ways out of the zone. While it is still the early days of the red strain, it seems like it was generally well received by most. Many have said that it is a little bit more challenging than both the Wicked Isle as well as the base game, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Many of the early responses seem to suggest that the red strain represents the kind of iterative improvements that could define Atomfall's future. So with the red strain now released, Atomfall's immediate DLC roadmap appears to be complete. Back in March, when we spoke with Ben Fisher, the head of design for Atomfall, he said that their plan had been for the 2 DLCs, which were the Wicked Isle and the red strain. Outside of that, there hasn't been anything else officially announced for Atomfall. However, during our discussion with Ben Fisher in March, he did say it's quite possible that there could be a sequel to Atomfall, but for now, we are just focused on the final polishing and the upcoming DLC. So now with the 2 DLCs released, the game's commercial success has clearly exceeded expectations. Push Square reported that Atomfall was immediately profitable for Rebellion, and that success has sparked serious sequel discussions. Rebellion CEO Jason Kingsley confirmed the studio is already considering a sequel. While Rebellion has been relatively quiet when it comes to what is next for Atomfall, the statements from Ben and Jason could indicate a continuation to the Atomfall story, and whether that will be more DLC or an entire sequel still remains a mystery. What is certain is that Rebellion's Atomfall experiment seems to have found its audience. 6 months after launch, with 2 DLCs released and positive momentum building, Atomfall has secured its place as more than just a one-off curiosity. So, 6 months later, does Atomfall deserve more recognition than it received? The answer is honestly a little bit more complicated than just yes or no. Critics largely dismissed it as shallow and frustrating, but over 2 million players found something worth exploring in its irradiated countryside. Its commercial success speaks for itself. The game was immediately profitable, and while the Wicked Isle may not have been a smash hit, the red strain seems to have corrected the course and provided something that felt both similar and unique. The fact that Atomfall has already produced 2 major story expansions within a 6-month period should be recognized as a major accomplishment given today's landscape of extended production cycles and delays. Additionally, there are already talks of a potential sequel in the works, which means regardless of the critics' thoughts on it, it clearly was a success for the studio, and there was definitely an audience for this uniquely British post-apocalyptic game. As for my personal thoughts, I think that playing Atomfall today with both DLCs is a worthwhile experience. Many of the woes that players experienced early on seem to have been fixed, and the additional DLCs add a significant amount to the game. On top of that, the game has replayability that is unquestionable at a price point of $50. Rebellion's care to provide consistent updates to their game and fix any major issues, as well as make sure they stayed on track with their roadmap, is definitely worth taking into consideration. If you're a player who is drawn to atmospheric world building and appreciates games that take genuine creative risks, then I think that this is well worth slapping onto your list of games to try out. The game's narrative branches, which continue to grow through its story expansions, are enough to keep players going and provide tons of replayable value to the game. So once again, does Atomfall deserve more recognition? Well, I personally believe that it does, and especially from the gaming community. I believe that Atomfall should be more recognized for going against the grain of the rest of the industry. While its initial reception may have been lackluster, I think that there is an argument to be made that gamers should applaud studios who take risks to tell new stories. From a consumer standpoint, we should also consider Atomfall's pricing. In an industry with increasing prices, Atomfall released at a $50 USD mark. It was also released on Xbox Game Pass, which gave players an even lower price point to experience the game. Atomfall's development team provided consistent updates to their game and even gave 2 DLC story expansions within 6 months, which should be hailed as a huge accomplishment. And lastly, I believe the ambition of Atomfall should definitely receive more recognition. This wasn't just a sequel banking on established success or a remake playing it safe. This was a mid-budget studio taking a massive creative risk on an untested concept. In an era of sequels and remakes, I think that bold and original concepts deserve more recognition. What did you think of Atomfall? Do you think it deserves more recognition than it received? And where do you think they can go from here? Let us know, and thank you for watching Game Rant. Don't forget to game on, and we'll see you next time.